Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for the Black Doctoral Network workshop series. And today's workshop is presented by Dr. Christopher Robinson, and it is titled Decreasing the Cost of College Through Utilization and Partnerships for Black Community College Social Work Students Pursuing HBCUs. A little bit about Dr. Robinson's background. He is an advocate, an educator, and licensed social worker, currently serves in the BSW program director and assistant professor of social work at Pennsylvania State University. Before joining Penn State, Professor Robinson previously served 11 years at the Community College of Allegheny County, where he led the Associate of Science in Social Work degree program at South Campus. Dr. Robinson also serves as Manager of Cultural Competency in the UPMC Center for Engagement and Inclusion, where he collaborates and develops strategic diversity initiatives that focus on culturally competent patient care, eliminating health disparities, enhancing language access services, and reducing community trauma. All right, everyone, thank you so much again for joining us today. I'll be sharing the survey link in the chat, so we ask that you please complete a brief evaluation to let us know and to provide feedback for Dr. Robinson regarding his workshop presentation. And any questions along the way, feel free to drop those in the chat as we go so that you don't forget them. And thank you all so much for joining us today, Dr. Robinson.
All right, again, thank you for that great introduction this evening. Certainly welcome each of you, and thank you for joining me today to be able to discuss my topic titled Decreasing the Cost of College through the Utilization and Partnerships for Black Community College Students Pursuing HBCUs. I'm very passionate about this topic. For myself, I am an HBCU graduate, and also I previously attended a community college as well. And I'll definitely be sharing a little bit about my story and trajectory into the field of social work, and also my story regarding student loan debt in ways in which students can be able to reduce the cost of tuition and their expenses to be able to pursue helping professions. So I'm very excited, and I certainly welcome each of you, and I look forward to engaging in a very engaging conversation this evening. For us to get started, I would like to share a short video with you all to be able to set the tone for our conversation this evening. This evening, we'll be talking about college student loan debt, the cost of attendance, students pursuing helping professions such as social work, their salaries, in ways in which you can be able to encourage others to be able to reduce their debt through some of the strategies and recommendations that I will be sharing with each of you this evening. But for us to set the tone for our conversation this evening, I'd like to share with you just a short video that talks about the current status of the United States regarding student loan debt and how that is disproportionately impacting students of color, particularly women of color as well, and also students within helping professions. So let's take a look.
Millions of Americans have one thing in common: a crippling amount of student debt. As of 2012, Americans owed over $1 trillion in student debt. And as of June 2020, that total surpassed $1.6 trillion.
So it is significant. This is the first time in our nation's history that we've ever held this much in student loan.
One of the most talked about side effects of the student debt crisis is how it's forcing borrowers to delay traditional markers of adulthood. One survey found that 21% of borrowers had delayed getting married, 26% had pushed back having kids, and 36% had put off buying a home, forcing an entire generation of borrowers to question the opportunity cost of going to college. At the same time, advancements in technology, especially automation, is making it harder to earn a living wage without some type of college degree. Today, college graduates earn 80% more than those with just a high school diploma. College is more expensive and more important than ever before. And that dichotomy is putting students in a difficult situation. Do they risk going into crippling debt at the beginning of their adult lives in the hope that their investment turns into a career and financial stability? So, what are students to do? And how did we get here?
We know most of the $1.7 trillion in student debt is simply never going to be paid back.
And then another kind of crisis happened.
Recession, recession, bad recession.
And another.
In the coronavirus pandemic.
The economic fallout of the pandemic.
We're in the middle of a pandemic. We're trying to figure out another stimulus package.
Between mid-March and June of 2020, over 42.6 million Americans filed for unemployment. And as of February, the U.S. economy officially entered an economic recession. During the 2008 recession, many opted to go back to school and gain new skills, but that is less certain now.
The real formative period for U.S. higher education was more or less 1890 to 1940, when a lot of modern colleges really started to expand, and college started to be something that wasn't just a vocation for people going to school to get a religious education or for a few of the landed wealthy.
In 1919, an estimated 598,000 students were enrolled in American colleges, almost entirely wealthy white men. In 1944, the GI Bill was signed, giving millions of veterans the chance to go to college for free. In 1958, the Cold War brought fears that the U.S. was technologically falling behind, prompting Congress to pass the National Defense Education Act, which offered students scholarships and loans to go to college. And just like that, student debt was born. In 1965, John F. Kennedy and Lyndon B. Johnson's War on Poverty paved the way for the Higher Education Act. Grants were now given to students based on their income, which dramatically expanded the opportunity to receive a college education to students other than wealthy white men, just as the civil rights movement was gaining momentum. At the time, education costs were low, college enrollment numbers grew, and so did the U.S. economy. Enter the Reagan era and the tax revolt when states passed tax and expenditure limitations that impacted the cost of education.
And that meant that state budgets came under threat. And so states that used to basically highly subsidize college education for many people started to cut back in various ways, either by raising tuition or by spending less, which means expanding class sizes.
In 1981, Ronald Reagan took office and began cutting federal college costs. Boomed. The College Board estimates that during the 1980 to 1981 school year, it cost students the modern equivalent of $17,410 to attend a private college and $7,900 to attend a public college, including tuition, fees, room and board on average. By 1990, these costs increased to $26,050 and $9,800 respectively. As costs grew, lawmakers scrambled for new solutions to expand access and cut costs. In the early 2000s, the Bush administration facilitated the growth of for-profit colleges. From 2000 to 2010, enrollment in private for-profit institutions increased by 329%. Then, in December 2007, the Great Recession hit.
We are in a recession.
A recession that lasts, he thinks, potentially the rest of the year.
Federal and state governments made deep cuts to higher education funding. The student debt situation was about to become a student debt crisis. As the labor market weakened, more and more workers looked to higher education as a lifeline. Public and private college enrollment spiked, and many were forced to turn away students. For-profit colleges welcomed these students with open arms.
At its peak, the for-profit sector accounted for a little bit more than 10% of all enrollment, but about a quarter of Pell Grants, about a third of student loans, and more than half of defaults.
For-profit colleges took in millions in federal aid and saddled students with piles of debt they couldn't pay off. From the start of the Great Recession in 2008 to the relative economic stability of 2018, college costs increased by 25%, while student debt increased by 107%. State and federal funding for higher education, the biggest source of revenue for most schools, has not returned to pre-2008 levels. The decisions of the past are having a significant impact on borrowers today.
$1.6 trillion. That's, a significant fraction of our $20 trillion GDP. That's how much we produce for the country per year.
Smith says that today, the average household with student debt owes about $48,000 in student loans, and that this is indeed a crisis.
And to build intergenerational wealth, a lot of that is bundled up in home ownership. If you're saddled with too much student loan debt, your ability to actually save up enough for your down payment, is influenced by that.
TD Bank estimates that student debt holders spend 20% of their take-home pay on loans, which impacts the U.S. economy, makes it harder for borrowers to prepare for retirement, and exacerbates existing inequality.
The average Black household has about 1/13 the wealth of the average white household.
And according to the American Association of University Women, women hold roughly 2/3 of all student debt in the nation. As of 2019, women hold almost $929 billion in outstanding student debt.
And a woman with a bachelor's degree would make on average what a man with an associate's degree makes. So in terms of repayment of those loans, you have women who are taking out higher and higher loans, and their ability to repay is influenced by their lower wages. So you almost have the makings of this perfect storm, which really disproportionately affects women.
Student debt also has a significant impact on students' everyday lives, the decisions they make, and their mental health.
To pay off my student debt, I have to either join the military or marry rich. So chances are probably join the military.
After I graduate, I'll have $35,000 in debt.
Currently, I have $65,000 of student debt, and I'll graduate with close to $100,000 of student debt.
And mostly that manifests itself as the kind of job, the career path you're going to seek after graduation.
I always wanted to pursue like pre-med and stuff like that.
I'm going to be doing investment banking.
Mostly high paying, we're talking Wall Street consulting.
They are super artistic and creative people, and they would love to pursue those pathways, but because of their income or because of the way that they've grown up, they are choosing like STEM fields.
I don't want to be in debt for all of my life, and the tuition here could definitely make that possible.
People are horrified about the possibility of not landing a job, not landing an internship, because if you don't land on your feet coming right out of it, what do you do?
It's one of the reasons why I cannot even enjoy being a student here, because every semester I have to worry about, do I have enough money to go to school next semester?
Well, especially people who have to work. I mean, the workload here is enough.
I have a job with the university in order to like supplement like my income.
Nothing in life comes easy. I think everyone can attest to that.
Get the best job possible to pay off that debt, and that's the best that I can do.
All of this begs the question, who is to blame for the student debt crisis?
Yeah, it's a tough question to answer directly.
The entire system should be held to the fire.
I think when it comes to the student loan crisis, we all share a little bit of the blame.
And with coronavirus forcing colleges to close their campuses and forcing millions of students to take classes online, students are reevaluating if their new educational experience is worth the cost. Students are suing their schools for refunds, and the government is spending trillions on economic stimulus, which makes people think that maybe we're closer to some type of student loan forgiveness than we've ever been.
I agree with the statement saying that we're the closest we've ever been to student loan forgiveness. It's not going to happen. This pandemic is affecting everybody in some way. The money that comes in from student loans is also things like Pell Grants. If it wasn't for those grants, low-income people wouldn't be able to attend school.
A generation ago, there was a system that helped you not take the risk on yourself to pay for a college education, but society took the risk on for you by making tuition cheap. Today, we've shifted the risk from society directly to the student. And that's not a narrative that just has to do with bad actors and good actors. It in many ways is a societal choice we've made. And in that sense, we all have to answer for it.
So again, that was just an overview of what we're currently seeing today as far as the student loan crisis here in the United States. And so when we look at the student loan crisis here in the United States, there are also various racial implications associated with that as well, as we call the racial student loan gap. And we certainly know that by the end of 2020, in the United States, the total US student loan debt topped around $1.7 trillion. And the most significant increase occurred between the years 2010 and 2020. And we certainly know for sure that African-American or Black graduate students or graduates are at much risk of having higher student loan debt than their white counterparts. And that individuals or African-Americans with bachelor's degrees as well are at risk of defaulting 5 times higher than of white graduates as well, due to various factors. And some of those factors also include higher student loan amounts and also less family wealth. And the Black and white disparity in student loan debt continues to triple, even more so after graduation. And it's certainly a major crisis that's affecting many of our communities today. And from a social work standpoint, we certainly consider this to be a social justice issue that's impacting various different segments of our communities, particularly people of color, and also particularly women of color as well. So as an interactive portion, what I would like for you guys to do, if you can, is take a guess and type your response in the chat box if you can. So the question is, what would you believe, or what is the average student loan amount for Black students in comparison to white students? So if you were to come up with a figure or to estimate a ballpark figure as far as an individual graduating with a 4-year bachelor's degree, how much debt does that African-American student on average nationwide will accrue? And if you can, just drop that into the chat box. Just as a guess. Okay, I see a couple responses here. I see 65,000, 100,000, okay? In fact, for African-American students, the average debt amount for Black students is around $56,726. Now, again, it's important to also note that this amount also includes various reductions of financial aid, grants, scholarships that individuals may have received. But on average, $56,000 is the average amount that African-American students will accrue by earning a 4-year degree in the United States today. Now, what about for white graduates? You can add that into the chat box as well. The average debt amount for white graduates with a bachelor's degree in the United States. Let's take a guess. Okay, see 35,000, 85,000, 30, okay. A couple different responses there. So for white students, the average is around $28,000. For a 4-year bachelor's degree as well. And so depending on the career field in which students are pursuing, it can be quite difficult to pay that back, particularly considering if they just have a bachelor's degree and if they're going into helping fields, such as social work, psychology, et cetera, some of those other professional helping areas as well, which can be very difficult to pay that back. And we'll kind of talk about that as we continue to move forward within this presentation. When we're looking at the overall cost of college attendance per year on average, the total amount is around $38,000 per year for students. And of course, financial aid and grants and scholarships can help support that, but students have to bear the rest of that cost to be able to attend college and to be able to actually earn a bachelor's degree. And here's just a depiction of what we're seeing today in terms of tuition and fees at colleges and universities, from private institutions, public out of state and public in-state as well. And it's important to note here that this basically only includes tuition and fees. It does not include room and board, housing, many other expenses that students actually accrue or that they have to be responsible for as a college student. So again, as we're looking at that within the past 10 years or so, we've seen a tremendous increase, and we do have social workers and people who are advocating on various levels to be able to call more attention to this issue, particularly for those who are working in helping professions. So in regards to myself, my academic journey into the field of social work really began as a high school student in my hometown of Kalamazoo, Michigan. In high school, I certainly knew I wanted to pursue some type of helping profession, and certainly had mentors and individuals who were very influential in my life who influenced me to pursue the profession of social work. But I also knew that I was very interested in attending a historically Black college or university. I had no idea how I was going to get there, no idea how I would pay for it, and really no idea how I could really just make it all work logistically. But with a lot of prayer and a lot of faith, I had the opportunity to pursue that. However, it certainly came with quite a few bumps in the road for me. So as a high school student out of high school, I applied to various colleges in Michigan, Grand Valley State, Michigan State, U of M. And as a high school student, I wasn't the best student at that time when I was in my younger years. So I was really discouraged, and I actually was denied to multiple institutions I applied to. And for a portion, I almost actually did not attend college at all. I almost gave up on my dream. I almost gave up on the opportunity to pursue a career. And as I look at it today, I'm currently professor at Penn State University. So I thank God for that opportunity to have the chance to be able to attend college, but was very discouraged because I didn't have the GPA, didn't have any money, didn't really have the support necessary to be able to pursue some of these institutions. But I also knew that I wanted to go to a HBCU. But before I went to a HBCU, I had the opportunity to attend a community college. And so in my hometown of Kalamazoo, Michigan, I attended Kalamazoo Valley Community College for 1 semester. And during the semester, it was a very challenging time. And it also was a very eye-opening experience for me as well, because I was a dual enrollment student at the time, and I really had no idea of what college was like, really didn't know what I wanted to do, but I wanted to go into a helping profession. But at my community college, they did not have a social work program. And so I was told that I was responsible for taking my general education courses and completing all my general eds and actually transferring to another institution to pursue my bachelor's degree in social work. At my community college, my experience was interesting because I was the only African-American in my classroom. I was 17 years old, and I just really did not feel like there was a cultural fit for me there, coming from an inner city urban high school to a suburban community college. It was certainly a challenge for me. And so as a result, I dropped out, unfortunately. I mean, 0.0 GPA did not work well, and I almost really gave up on my dream until Jackson State came knocking at my door, and I had the opportunity to be accepted to an HBCU. And during my 4 years experience at Jackson State, I rarely utilized many of my resources on campus, such as academic advisors and et cetera. And I thought that I was doing a good job or a good deed by self-advising myself as an undergraduate student. Well, as I hit my junior year, I found out that as I self-advised myself, that I actually created a bigger barrier for myself because there were several prerequisites that I did not complete, which would hold me back potentially in another semester and possibly even another year. So as a result, I could not go back to the community college because I was my junior year and I was completing 300 level courses. So I had to attend Western Michigan University in my hometown for a semester during the summer to be able to complete courses, to catch up and get back on track, to be able to transfer back to Jackson State University so that I can graduate with my bachelor's degree in social work. So that actually accrued more debt by going to another institution, transferring credits by self-advising myself, and also by being an out-of-state student and et cetera. But nevertheless, I had the opportunity to still graduate from Jackson State with my bachelor's degree in social work, and that certainly changed my life trajectory in many different ways. Following my experience at Jackson State University, I had the opportunity to attend the University of Pittsburgh, where I received my master's degree in social work and also received a diversity scholarship to pursue my MSW. However, little did I know at that time, being only 22 years old and fresh out of undergrad, that I still was responsible for out-of-state fees and hidden fees and et cetera. And as a result, my 1 year at the University of Pittsburgh equaled almost my 4 years at Jackson State University. So just adding more debt to my profile as well. And several years later, I had the opportunity to continue to work in the field of social work, and also the opportunity to teach at the Community College of Allegheny County. And I was privileged to have access to tuition assistance to pursue my doctorate in education at Indiana University, in which I actually had to accrue more debt as well. So by the time I actually graduated with my doctorate, master's, bachelor's, all together was close to around $100,000. And I know that today's time that there are some students today who actually graduate from undergrad with close to $100,000 in debt as well. But I knew that if I had the right support, and if I would have, attended and really was supported in my community college environment, if I had the opportunity to participate in out-of-state fee waivers or any other type of support resources for me, I could have certainly significantly reduced my student loan debt significantly. And so, as I continue to go on and work with students throughout my profession and at the university, I always try to share with students to seek those opportunities that exist, whether it's scholarships, whether it's grants, fellowships, and et cetera, to be able to reduce the cost of attendance by attending those various universities or being at a university. But nevertheless, me being at an HBCU actually helped me to be able to develop my social work skills and to also learn social work from what we call the Black perspective, considering that as an HBCU, and that is designed to be able to meet the need of African-American students. And that certainly helped me to be able to learn how to serve communities better from an African-American Black perspective lens as well. So as far as HBCUs are concerned, I know many of you are very familiar, but just as an overview of some of their statistics and quick facts, HBCUs represent about 3% of all colleges and universities in America. As of today, there are around 100 HBCUs nationwide, and they enroll about 12% of all African-American college students. However, we're beginning to see an increase there, where there are many students who are interested in attending HBCUs now, so more than previous years, which is quite exciting as well. In addition, we also know that they produce 20% of all African Americans earning undergraduate degrees, which is significant. And they award over 40% of all African American STEM degrees, and they certainly generate tons of money towards the economy as well. And they also help to be able to encourage higher graduation rates and retention rates for African American students. And as you can see here, this is just a map of where various HBCUs are located throughout the United States. And many of these institutions, particularly for social work programs, may offer out-of-state tuition fee waivers, which can make it much more affordable for a student from the Midwest or from the East Coast or et cetera to attend an HBCU. And I'll be sharing that with you as well. So, as far as community colleges are concerned, we certainly know that there are over or approximately 936 community colleges across the nation. And about nearly half of all students nationwide begin their education at a community college, as I did as well. However, in my experience, I really did not feel a connection at my community college for me, and I was unsuccessful. And when I transferred to my HBCU, that's where I certainly felt at home, felt empowered, and had the opportunity to really strive and to grow as a student as well. But nevertheless, for community colleges, they also, approximately 13% of Black students attend community colleges nationwide. And there are about 12 historically Black community colleges across the nation. And there's also predominantly Black community colleges as well, which comprise 40% of Black students and 50% of students who come from low income, under-resourced, first generation households. And so as we look at the missions of social work, community colleges, and also HBCUs, there are certainly some common themes that are associated with each of those entities. So for example, as we look at the profession of social work, our primary mission is to enhance human well-being and meet the basic needs of all people, with special attention and empowerment to those who are vulnerable, oppressed, and living in poverty. And as we look at the mission of HBCUs, which are institutions that were established prior to 1964, with the principal mission of educating African Americans. And we also certainly know that these institutions were developed and created in response to segregation and discrimination in higher education. And with community colleges, they're primarily affordable, community-based, community-serving institutions. And these institutions are primarily responsible for meeting the needs of their local communities and their local workforces as well, and also helping to develop students through developmental studies and also career services as well. And so once we look at those three missions, there's certainly common themes in this comparable mission between community colleges and HBCUs, and also with social work to a degree. When we look at those two institutional types, we know that community colleges and also state-funded or public HBCUs can be much more relatively affordable for students. They also focus on diverse student groups. Many students who attend those institutions are first generation, low income, often as well. And many community colleges and HBCUs can be test optional or have open enrollment policies, and they definitely can provide very supportive learning environments for the students in which they serve. And from a social work lens, I'm always interested in challenging social injustices. And so when we talk about equity gaps, for social work students, or just the student loan debt crisis that we're currently seeing for students of color, that could certainly be a deterrent for students to being able to pursue helping professions, considering some of the stigma that may be associated with those professions as well. And so part of my work and part of my mission is to be able to dismantle those stereotypes and to be able to help students have greater access to resources to be able to keep their college tuition and student loan debt to a minimum. The following map here kind of describes and kind of visualizes the average cost of college for in-state students. And as you can see, you can probably find your home state to get a better idea of what the overall cost of college would be for in-state students. I'm originally from Michigan, so that'll be around $24,000 for cost. And also I live in Pennsylvania, so that's approximately over $27,000 as well. As you look at the next map, which depicts the cost of attendance for students who are from out of state, as I was as well, it jumps significantly. As you can see in Pennsylvania, it's approximately $30,000. And in Mississippi, where I attended Jackson State, is close to $20,000 today as well. So as you can see, there's definitely a significant jump for out-of-state students. One thing that's disadvantaging students here in Pennsylvania that we're seeing is that Pennsylvania is the only state in the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic region that is not home to a HBCU social work program. So the HBCUs that we currently have in our state do not offer social work as a discipline. They offer other disciplines or other majors, such as human services, psychology, and et cetera, but there is no social work program at our HBCUs here in Pennsylvania. So for students who are interested in attending an HBCU to be able to learn social work from the Black perspective at an HBCU, they must depart Pennsylvania and attend a neighboring state or potentially a southern state to be able to earn a bachelor's degree or a master's degree in social work, which is definitely creating an equity gap, an equitable transfer gap for students here in our state. And several other states also share similarities as well. In Michigan, there aren't any large HBCUs, so students who want to pursue an HBCU who are from Michigan must depart the state as well to be able to pursue social work or other professions also, which at the end they're accruing more student loan debt. So certainly a major issue there. And this particular map also shows the average cost of attendance for private four-year institutions. And as you can see, the price actually goes up even more so for those type of institutions as well, due to them being private schools. And for average community college students, for in-state students who attend a community college, there's significant cost savings, in which in Pennsylvania, it's approximately $5,000 a year for students to be able to attend a community college, because they're eliminating generally housing fees as far as room and board, meal plans, and et cetera, which can be often expensive for students. And that really just drives the cost of attendance up even more. So students are certainly advantaged by 2+2 programs, or advantaged by attending a community college first for the first 2 years and transferring to a four-year university or HBCU for the remaining 2 years to earn their degree. And again, as I shared before, as far as cost of attendance, we're certainly trying to recruit more people of color into the field of social work, more men into the field of social work as well. But we certainly know that one of the challenges is that the cost of attendance for students to receive a degree, and also the salaries for some of those very entry-level professions in the field, can be quite discouraging as well. But we certainly know that we need more social workers to be able to meet some of the mental health challenges in our communities, to be able to meet some of the behavioral health challenges, and also just improve our communities as a whole. So the role of social workers is really important for our communities and society, and we must make that much more affordable to be able to increase the demand for social workers across the nation. As we look at the salaries for national social workers, again, this is just a national average. For generalist social workers who hold a BSW or a licensed bachelor social worker, the average entry-level salary entering into the field is approximately $37,000 per year. And for experienced social workers who may hold a license or years of experience within the field with just a bachelor's degree is approximately $47,000 per year. But we certainly see a big jump there for advanced level social workers who hold an MSW or an LMSW or a license at the master's level or even license at the clinical level. So for the average salary for master level social workers is approximately $65,000. And for experienced master level social workers with a license or other credentials could be approximately on an average $72,000 as well. And so for students who are jumping from the bachelor's to master's, there's a significant pay increase also, but there's also the student loan increase and the debt increase that may occur for students who may not necessarily have the grades, but have the passion and capacity to be able to be a social worker and to be able to meet the needs of individuals and also their communities as well. So we certainly need to do a much better job in reducing that cost for students. And some of the examples I will share with you later will also give you a few ideas of how we can do that and how we're actually doing that here within the greater Pittsburgh region. So for social work careers, this just kind of depicts some of the various different professions or practice settings in the social work career as well, or fields as well, such as working with adolescents, aging, community organizing, diversity, equity, and inclusion, which is huge and certainly growing as well. In addition to forensic social work, human rights, working with LGBTQIA+ populations, poverty, and et cetera. So there's a significant need for us to meet the needs of patients, of clients, of community members, families, and groups through social work. And the demand for social work is continuing to increase. So between the years 2019 and 2029, we will see a 13% increase in demand for social workers here in the United States. And particularly, we're going to see a bigger increase for social workers in healthcare settings, working in hospitals, urgent care centers, or working in healthcare organizations, in addition to mental health and also substance abuse social workers. So again, keeping that cost of tuition and cost of attendance low and affordable is crucial, particularly for students who are disadvantaged and for students of color. So when we look at some of the various different institutions that exist that are HBCUs and look at the cost of attendance for these institutions in comparison to PWIs, public or state-funded HBCUs, particularly in the South, are considered to be much more affordable per year. And so my alma mater, Jackson State University, has an average tuition of approximately $19,000 for students. And what's really unique is that Jackson State, in addition to all of these other HBCUs, currently offer out-of-state tuition fee waivers for students. So for example, if you are a student from Pennsylvania and you're interested in attending Jackson State University, now the out-of-state fee for out-of-state students is only $500 a semester in comparison to almost $5,000 to what it was several years ago. So that is certainly much more cost efficient and effective for students from other regions outside of the South who want to transfer or who are interested in attending HBCUs as well. And one of the beauty and the biggest parts about this is that these institutions are all accredited by the Council on Social Work Education, CSWE, as well. So with the out-of-state tuition fee waivers, being accredited by the CSWE, which is the largest and the leading accrediting body for schools of social work at the bachelor's and master's level, you're certainly getting a lot of bang for your buck as well. And so, you know, with me being a professor at Penn State University and being the inaugural professor and director of our social work program, you know, I would love for students of color to be able to join us here at Penn State University. However, I'm certainly aware and understand that Penn State may not be a fit for every single student and that some students really thrive and succeed, you know, much greater in HBCU environments as well, and certainly understand that. And so as a social worker, sometimes I have to kind of take a look at my own values and ethics and think about that from the need standpoint and also from the social problem standpoint of students of color being, you know, burdened with high amounts of student loan debt, and also students of color, African-American students, having an interest in pursuing HBCUs. So these are just an example of some institutions that provide out-of-state fee waivers for students that have accredited social work programs, and they work well with community colleges as well in terms of being able to transfer the credits from their community college to these four-year institutions. And so for students to be able to attend community colleges, it's certainly an advantage for students to participate in 2+2 program to program pipelines, or 2+2 programs, as we say for short. And so what does this mean? This means that students can complete their first 2 years at a community college and their remaining 2 years at a four-year institution. Whether that's a HBCU or a PWI, they can be able to stack their courses and transfer their courses into the institution that currently has a formal agreement with their school of choice. However, all institutions or all community colleges do not always have 2+2 programs for students to be able to attend some of HBCUs or other minority serving institutions. But for the community colleges that do, it's important for students to take advantage of those opportunities to participate in the 2+2 programs. And there's various different benefits to those students who do. And one of the benefits is that it decreases the cost of attendance for students. Students are able to retain their credits that were earned at their community college as well. And typically students can participate in student-focused academic advising. It also helps to simplify the process, the transfer process for students, which can be quite difficult and complex. It also increases students' chances of earning a bachelor's degree, in which research indicates that students who attend a community college and students who actually earn an associate degree at their community college have a greater chance of earning a four-year bachelor's degree in comparison to some students who are going directly to the four-year institution directly out of high school as well. So that's something to note. And of course, another benefit is that it saves time for students. Now, some disadvantages for students who may participate in 2+2 programs is that it certainly can narrow the range of courses in which students can take in their major and also in other majors. So you may be restricted on specific electives that may be available or that you're interested in taking, or you may have a very strong interest in taking a cultural diversity or African-American jazz or studies course. And that's fine and great. And of course, for the knowledge concept, but being able to transfer that course may not necessarily transfer equally or fairly as well. So that's certainly another challenge. Also, students who attend community colleges and transfer to four-year institutions are only able to really transfer their 100 to 200 level courses that are completed at their community colleges. Now, students have completed courses at other universities with C grades, or C letter grade or better, they may be able to transfer those credits. And of course, only C letter grades transfer to four-year institutions, and credit loss can occur if students may switch their majors or transfer or to a different institution or attend a different school, or that may change. So there are some disadvantages to that, but in terms of the cost savings, credit retention, and et cetera, there's various benefits associated with that for students participating in those 2+2 programs. In the field of social work at community colleges that actually offer social work programs, these are 4 courses in which students can actually complete to be able to transfer to primarily almost any four-year university that offers a bachelor's degree in social work. And that includes Introduction to Social Work, Cultural Competence in Diverse Populations, Introduction to Social Welfare History and Programs, and also Human Behavior in the Social Environment. And these 4 courses are generally foundational courses that are really the cornerstone of every social work program, particularly within the sophomore year for students. So these 4 courses generally transfer quite well as long as they're earned with a C letter grade or better. And so by completing these 4 courses at a community college can also save students a little bit more time and also more money as they begin to transfer either to an HBCU or to another four-year institution. Here in Pittsburgh specifically, we have a variety of groups who are really advocating for transfer equity and advocating for the promotion of HBCUs. And an organization that's here locally is titled the Western Pennsylvania Council of HBCU Alumni, which is comprised of over 100 alumni here in the greater Pittsburgh area who have all attended HBCUs. And as a community collective, our goal is to be able to promote HBCU culture, to be able to introduce students to HBCUs as well, and to be able to also help reduce the cost of attendance for students who are transferring or attending HBCUs, either from a community college or from straight out of high school as well. But what we're doing that's quite unique and that's kind of unique for us in comparison to other local alumni groups is that we are kind of a centralized group of various HBCUs put together. And we also work very closely with our local community colleges and some of their administrators on finding ways and exploring ways of how can we create better equitable transfer pipelines for students to be able to attend HBCUs directly from a community college. Oftentimes, when we think about attending HBCUs, we think about high school straight to the HBCU or four-year school. But again, that community college is a special sauce that can certainly provide students a much more affordable transition to the four-year institution and also develop that student to have a greater chance of actually graduating from an institution as well. Yesterday, in fact, I actually watched a documentary that talked about our student loan debt here in the United States. Out of our total student loan debt, about 40% of all of our student loan debt that the United States has, 40% of those students did not earn a college degree. So it's important that we're sending students to institutions and sending students to schools to where they're going to be supported, students are going to be successful, it's an environmental fit, and they have the resources to be able to stay and to be able to complete, which just all encompasses student success. But in addition, we also coordinate HBCU trainings for academic advisors, administrators, staff, students, and also for the community as well, because we certainly recognize that there was a significant need for us to be able to educate the community about HBCUs and to educate students, parents, and also individuals who may not be African-American about the power of HBCUs, their cost savings, and how students being at a community college are able to reduce their cost of attendance significantly by starting there and going to a four-year institution. So we certainly conduct trainings to be able to educate our community and our community college communities locally. We also serve as liaisons between HBCUs and the community colleges, and we develop fundraising efforts to be able to organize scholarships and resources for students to be able to transfer from Pittsburgh to the community college, the HBCU of their choice as well. And we also create various community-based activities and mentorship opportunities for students to where we will match students with an alumni of the school of their choice. So for example, for students who are interested in attending Jackson State University, I may serve as a mentor for that student, or other alumni here in the area may serve as a mentor for that student to be able to work with the family, ensuring that the students have everything that they need, also from a cultural perspective. And that's extremely important, because one thing we've witnessed several years ago is that we witnessed that there were a lot of counselors from various different schools in the area that were discouraging students from going to HBCUs. And that includes white counselors and also Black counselors as well. And many of them may not have went to HBCU themselves or may not be familiar. And that certainly kind of really sent a negative message in the community. And there was a time about maybe 8 years ago where myself and others presented to a high school, a pretty much predominantly Black high school, about HBCUs, and only a few students knew what an HBCU was out of a couple hundred, which was heartbreaking. So this organization was developed in 2016 to be able to improve the culture and awareness of HBCUs and to reduce the cost of attendance for students, and it's been very, very successful in a community standpoint, and very successful in working with our local community colleges as well. So some various recommendations that I suggest for students, faculty, parents, or anyone who's interested in attending college is to begin your academic journey at a community college if possible. There's significant cost savings associated with community colleges, and community colleges can also help students to be able to strengthen their academic skills and their talents so that they're certainly ready to pursue the four-year university, and it also increases their chances of graduating with a bachelor's degree in comparison to those who may come directly out of high school to a four-year institution. We also recommend for students to participate in 2+2 pipeline programs if possible. And we certainly understand that all community colleges may not have that readily available, but if not, Ensure that you're contacting and connecting with HBCUs to see exactly what courses you need to complete in order to transfer to that institution, which can also save time and save money. Next, create a transfer credit roadmap to be able to document all of the courses that you have created and to see exactly what is it that you need to complete and what is it that you need to do and all of the steps necessary to be able to reach your goal after graduating from a community college. Also encourage you to connect with your local HBCU alumni chapters that may be within your own regions as well. Oftentimes, some of the independent chapters from various universities may have scholarships and grants available for students who are from their local areas. So that's a great way to be able to participate and connect with local alumni who can support you through your process as you're transitioning to the HBCU to ensure that you're graduating serve as mentors and also connect you to any other financial resources. Next is apply for grants and scholarships. I can't reinforce that enough as well. Grants and scholarships are extremely important, and the earlier you apply, the better as well. And so that's something that can also reduce the cost of attendance for students. And apply to institutions with out-of-state fee waivers. Back when I was in high school attending undergrad years ago, over 20 years ago, to my knowledge, there was no such thing as out-of-state fee waivers. If you wanted to have an out-of-state fee removed from your account, you had to become a resident after staying there for over a year, getting an off-site apartment, which is more money, more debt, and et cetera. And as I did that myself, the tuition actually increased the next year, so it really didn't make a difference. But again, if I had that cost savings early on, at my beginning of my academic journey at my four-year institution, I would have been able to save significantly more. I also recommend applying for admissions and financial aid early. Generally, admissions decisions can also provide students the opportunity to be able to apply for more scholarships and grants at their institution, and for financial aid packages that are set early in advance as well. Students may be eligible for other grants and other funding packages that may be associated with the university that may not be available for everyone once those funds have been depleted. So the earlier that students apply, the better. And that, again, also not just for undergraduate students, but also for graduate students as well, particularly for the admissions decisions. The earlier, the better, in which scholarships could be available. Next, I certainly recommend for students, if this is a part of their, their learning style, is to pursue some online programs as well. 10, 15 years ago, pursuing an online program in social work was considered to be frowned upon, but we understand that there are many institutions, including HBCUs, that offer online social work programs that are accredited by the Council on Social Work Education, the same accreditation as all other accredited social work programs as well. And by attending an online platform, that saves students the cost of housing and also meals, traveling, and et cetera. But it also gives students the opportunity to be able to be engaged with their faculty and other students of color who may be participating or maybe enrolled at that university as well. So you can certainly are able to build community virtually through that platform online, and also learn social work as well from an online accredited institution. So that's another way to save money. And my last recommendation is, if you live within any of these regions, to certainly try to participate in the regional student exchange programs, which is quite unique. And the student exchange programs are initiatives established for students to be able to attend a university at a neighboring state outside of their state by also not being charged out-of-state tuition. So for example, if I lived in Mississippi and if I wanted to attend a school in Alabama that may have a program that's not offered here, I can attend the school in Alabama to attend that program and also still have my out-of-state tuition not charged on my account. So it'll save me money, and it'll also give me an opportunity to be able to pursue a degree in a nearby neighboring state as well. And so these are just some of the 4 primary exchange programs that we see that are currently established today. And again, they're only available in select states. Unfortunately, Pennsylvania is not one of those states. And this map here even depicts some of the different states across the country that actually have reciprocity within those various student exchange programs. So as you can see here in the Midwest, between Michigan and Indiana, they offer it, but Ohio does not. Pennsylvania does not. And so we're looking at transfer equity or looking at maintaining and reducing the cost of attendance for students, these programs certainly help to do so as well. But for the states who may not offer this as a program, it certainly can be much more costly to be able to transfer out of state to attend those institutions if they do not offer out-of-state fee waivers as well. So I'm certainly a big proponent, big supporter of these reciprocity programs for student exchange programs as well, because I did not have the opportunity when I was an undergraduate student. So at this time, I'd like to open the floor for questions that anyone may have regarding some of the topics that I shared today, as far as student loan debt, 2+2 programs, connecting students to community colleges, to HBCUs, and being able to keep the cost of attendance much more affordable. So I'm certainly willing to ask any questions that you may have at this time. Yes, ma'am.
I don't have a question, but I want to make a comment or a share, if you don't mind.
Please.
Okay. Well, good evening, first of all, Dr. Robinson, my fellow Midwesterner and my fellow SWAC person.
All right, now.
And fellow social worker.
All right.
My name is Kashara Guy Robinson, and good evening, everyone on here. I'm a school social worker, and I live in the metropolitan Atlanta area. But I am also an undergraduate BSW person from an HBCU. I attended Alabama State University, the best undergraduate school in the SWAC.
Hold on.
Our schools are big rivals, everybody. So that's why I'm talking trash to him. But I'm also originally from the Midwest. I grew up in Ohio. And what I noticed is that a lot of students that I attended Alabama State with, they were students who came down, that came from the Midwest in particular, some kids from the East Coast and some from even as far as California. A lot of times they came back because they either wanted the HBCU experience or they had family that was from Alabama and they were coming back, to reconnect with their roots. So I think a lot of times, as you said, Dr. Robinson, unfortunately, people oftentimes make our students believe that the water is wetter and that the sugar is sweeter at PWIs. So the only thing that I wanted to just kind of share with the group is that don't discount our HBCUs. I had an opportunity, as I stated, to go to an HBCU for undergraduate school. My tuition was paid, and that was because oftentimes our schools have scholarship opportunities for our students that are not necessarily available at our larger PWIs. That was my experience anyway. And a lot of my classmates that attended with me, that was what happened with us. And I also want to just encourage the group to just apply for scholarships. Like oftentimes what has been my experience from the BSW level all the way to the DSW level, as I am currently enrolled in a DSW program, oftentimes people don't apply for those scholarships. So I've had scholarships at the BSW level, MSW level, and DSW level. And it's just because I'll put myself out there and I'll apply. So that's the tidbit I just wanted to share with everyone, is that encourage your students, if you have children or young people that you're connected to who are pursuing degrees at every level, to go on ahead and just stick your hat in the ring, because oftentimes money is left on the table because people don't apply, because they don't think that they'll be eligible. And another thing I wanted to say too is encourage young people to connect with their alumni associations in whatever city that they live in. Because I'm in the Atlanta area, we have a plethora of HBCU graduates, which I know is different than where you live, Dr. Robinson, and where you and I grew up in Michigan and Ohio. You don't have as many people of color who are HBCU graduates as you would in a place like Atlanta. But encourage the young people to connect with their alumni associations. Jackson State Alumni Association here in Atlanta, FAMU, I can go on and on, even us at Alabama State, and we're not one of the powerhouses, but we have kids that we give scholarships to every year for books, some small tuition scholarships, etc. So that's another tip that I have. So thank you for allowing me to speak. And thank you for this presentation. It was awesome.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Absolutely. You know, and I would like to echo what you shared as well by being able to connect to local alumni associations. There's a lot of resources and a lot of funding out there for students. We just have to tap into that as well. So thank you for sharing. I see we have another Robinson here, Janie Robinson. I see your hand is up.
Yes, I'm not a social worker, I'm a nurse, but I do have a question about the preparing African Americans for the licensure exam for social work.
Yes. Okay.
I actually know someone that's not able to pass the exam, and she went to a PWI, and I was wondering, are there any resources that you would recommend that she should try to
Yes,
prepare
ma'am.
for the exam?
Absolutely. It's a great question. Thank you for asking that question. I will first share that there's a ton of resources out there to help students prepare for the license exam. However, all of the resources are not that effective. And so there has been some integrity issues to where some organizations or resources promise students, you know, you pass on the first try. If you purchase this program, if you do this, you get to pass on the first try. And if not, you get your money back, and et cetera. And sometimes I've seen in my own experience, students paying into the thousands of dollars trying to prepare for the actual license exam. And they're participating in these, you know, one-time pass programs, and it's not being that effective. But for myself and for some of the students who I work with on a daily, one of my greatest resources that I truly love is an app called Pocket Prep. Pocket Prep actually is an app you can actually download on your phone, or you can even actually go to the website online. And it's just not for social work, but it's also for many other professions that actually require a license. And so I encourage students to utilize that app, because many of the questions that are on that app are very similar to the questions on the exam. And so even as I study to prepare for the exam myself, I would utilize that app every day. And they would share with me a question of the day or send it to me as a text message. I would answer the question of the day. And whether it was right or wrong, I'll read the response to be able to learn exactly why is this correct and why are the other answers incorrect. And so I would do that on a daily, and then regularly on weekends, I would actually complete 100 questions back to back, because a license exam is a 4-hour exam and you have 170 questions to answer in 4 hours. And so I would kind of prime myself and condition myself on a regular to go through 100 questions nonstop, undistracted, turn the TV off, turn the phone off, go through 100 questions, and be able to find out what are the correct responses and why it's correct or why it's not, correct or incorrect. And that was very, was very helpful for me. And many students who I've shared that app with as well, has certainly helped them also. I will say that social work exam is not easy by any means. I've worked with people who are in the profession, some people who are well known in the profession, and they have not had the chance to pass it. A person who I work with attempted 8 times, failed the exam 8 times. But when I shared the Pocket Prep resources with this individual and they studied, they were able to pass. And so students have to be able to build their endurance as well, to sit there completely undistracted for 4 hours straight to answer 170 very complex questions, questions that may catch people off guard as well, because the exam is really trying to see how you think critically as a social worker, and also what would you do as a professional social worker in the circumstance. So we can't answer the questions according to what we would do as a person, but what is a social worker supposed to do? So think about it from that angle, and also utilize Pocket Prep, either the BSW exam, the master's level exam, or the clinical exam as well. Use that daily for several months. It could definitely increase your chances to pass the exam.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions at this time? Well, if not, I certainly like to thank each of you for joining me this evening and hearing my discussion about reducing the cost of college for social work students pursuing HBCUs as well. I certainly hope that this information was useful and valuable to each of you. And I certainly hope that each of you will continue to inspire others and to help promote our HBCUs and community colleges, because they certainly are a great pathway for students to save debt and also to be able to earn a college degree and to be able to help change the world. So thank you for your time this evening. I greatly appreciate it.
Thank you all so much for joining us, and thank you, Dr. Robinson, for this informative presentation. I want to remind everyone that the evaluation link is posted in the chat, so please, before you head out, take a minute to complete the evaluation. I'll greatly appreciate that, as well as Dr. Robinson contact information, which is posted in the chat right now. And I want to invite everyone to return to us next week, Tuesday, as we have our final workshop in the BDN Spring Workshop Series, which is entitled New Degree, New You. That workshop will take place Tuesday, June 14th at 6 p.m. Eastern. In order to register, I ask that you visit blackphdnetwork.org/events. We thank you again so much for joining us. Thank you again, Dr. Robinson. Everyone, please have a good night. Thank you.